LIRAN from Israel is an application security activist and a long-term proponent of open source software, a member of the Node.js security working group, and also an OWASP project lead. The talk today is super interesting. LIRAN is going to talk about the secret life of developer advocacy. We're going to get a peek at what the secret life of developer advocates are, and maybe you'll find that developer advocacy is for you and is your next career move. I love this topic, such a hot topic at the moment. It really ties into the previous talks, and I think everyone is kind of scratching the surface of being a developer advocate, maybe for themselves or a project that they love, and it could be your next career move. So over to you, LIRAN.
Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to my talk. My name is LIRAN TAL, and I'm a developer advocate at Snyk, where we build developer-first security platforms to help developers build securely using open source software. Today I want to talk to you about the field of developer relations, and also known as DevRel in short. You might have seen or interacted with many of us taking different titles and roles, such as developer advocates, developer experience, or developer relations. There may be developer evangelists. But unlike software engineering, where we can all imagine how a typical day looks like, a bit of debugging, design meetings, getting into the zone and writing code. Yep. The day-to-day in developer relations is a bit different. It will vary between different roles, different companies, and likely vary depending on the department you report to, whether that is marketing, product, or engineering. If we need to define what developer relations is all about, what its goal and what role it plays in a community, then I choose to use the following quote by Jennifer Riggins to define it. As you can imagine, getting developers excited with your product happens in many different mediums, whether they are blog posts because maybe you want to write about something. Maybe it's a different way of how you share the demo and other things. So thinking about it in terms of the most helpful ways you had experienced the product, you found demos, an example code of how to use a library, you used a proof of concept application that someone put for you as a starting point. You interacted with an API documentation that found it tremendously helpful. Maybe you found a friendly and helpful advice on GitHub issue for a library you're using. All of these are really good examples of meaningful interactions that DevRels have put out to engage with you as a developer. As another perspective of developer relations, we can refer to the developer engagement model suggested by Amir Shevat, a seasoned DevRel in this space. This model suggests an iterative process of engagement from education to enabling users, collecting feedback, and inspiring them to follow through on a vision. Management, however, likes to quantify and ROI everything, as management usually is. So if executives who ask you about DevRel, you can always tell them the following, right? Developer relations is like the force. You can't see it, you can't feel it. You just have to believe it. Well, anyway, do you actually know what DevRel people do all day? It seems that except for our peers in the DevRel community and community managers, this isn't really much of a common knowledge, perhaps except for people viewing traveling and speaking as the primary part of DevRels is all they do. And for some, it is true. So I want to give you a glimpse of what my first year being a developer advocate at a security and a dev-first tooling company looked like in terms of activities that I took part of. Well, here's what my developer friends think I do, and my colleagues, what they think I do. Not very much different from what my wife thinks I do all the time. Except, what I actually do is, I do a bit of conference travel, and it seems, harder than it's a bit harder than it seems, right? All the talks preparation require a lot of, time to build a story, to build an engaging and motivating model for people to actually look up, inspire, and walk out of a talk with. And all of this happens, within an ecosystem that we're active with. And we always do this, from unconventional places, right? We're always kind of on the road. And, COVID has actually managed to change this a little bit with all the virtual going on. So, we used to do this from plane rides and train rides and coffee places. Well, now we're doing this from our living rooms, with kids maybe bunching around all the time. Anyway, we often don't talk about the transition to DevRel, which can be a confusing experience. I came from an engineering background, very tech savvy before taking on this role at Sneak, and I was leading teams in the 8 years prior to that, building web products based. But as a DevRel, what should I do now? There is no user story titled, connect with the community, or what does it even mean? Luckily, for me at least, I've been involved with open source communities prior to joining Sneak. So I gave talks and conferences and meetups. I was actively involved in communities such as being, a member of the Node Foundation and big projects like the Min.js JavaScript framework. Still, given all that, my first couple of months as a developer advocate still felt a bit weird. I attribute the confusion I felt to the fact that as an engineer and a manager, I'm used to work in a structure and patterns, and DevRel, or at least starting it, provided no such structure for me. For a lot of developers or people in DevRel, it's probably synonym with travel. So let's get that out of the way really fast, really quick. There is some travel. We do it quite a bit. It has used to be a thing before everything went virtual. So it is pretty common in general for DevRel teams to be distributed across regions in the world. It is for allowing us to basically have easy reach to activities and conferences and meetups and basically communities all over the places. So most of the work can be done, as expected, remotely or on the road due to travel. And nowadays, most of these activities have indeed gone completely virtual, allowing us to engage even more often and connect with worldwide communities which we may have missed out on before. So if your company have set its mission to drive open source security as an accessible asset to each and every developer in the world, my life mission is basically to make that possible. But what really is thought leadership, actually, right? When developers chat about maybe dependency management and one of those, one of them tell the others, hey, I think I read a Sneak blog about log file security, right? When a developer chat with another developer about Lodash, and one of them remembers and says to the other, it's that prototype pollution security issue that I found on the Sneak blog. Well, this is the way that I see it. We build thought leadership by pioneering, innovating, inspiring, and providing valuable insights and information to the community, to the developers, that they can take it forward. Let's explore an example of thought leadership and how it impacts the community. One of Sneak's key activities is its annual State of Open Source Security, serving how open source maintainers may adapt security processes. So the status of language-based ecosystems such as NPM.js, Ruby gems, containers, and others, how did that actually evolve? So back in 2019, when I joined the company, I started building out this report as one of my first DevRel activities. This key activity that DevRel do is collaborating with their peers and partners and in different companies is really what some of this is all about. So pushing out an article on the GitHub blog, for example, was a really good way to share the news and help amplify this message of what the state of open source security really is to developers who actually care about this. And this is where they are. These are the blogs that they read. It was actually further incredible to see how this kind of thought leadership work goes beyond just helping the community and actually taps into positioning the company as a recognized brand leader in this field, seeing that my work has direct impact on the business by genuinely inspiring and helping customers realize the importance of the work we do, really provide a lot of deep satisfaction. To show you how far this resonated, how important this report has been, this is a tweet from Erica Brescia, GitHub COO, and Yvonne Wasner's Puppet's COO, both tweeting and citing key takeaways from that report from Yvonne's keynote at the Open Source Summit Europe 2019. These are all examples of the power of thought leadership a brand can have in an ecosystem. For DevRels, there's always a sense of being connected, which is another point of DevRel and activities. Being connected with the latest news, with the current threads, being in the know with things happening with the community. For example, there's a new thing at GitHub like GitHub Actions. What does it actually enable? How can we leverage it to solve a particular pain point that developers have? As a DevRel, you'll often be a conduit that bridges communities. For example, breaking news to developers as soon as possible about security incidents to make sure everyone are aware and can seek upgrades as fast as possible. A malicious remote code execution backdoor discovered in the popular Bootstrap SaaS Ruby gem. Oftentimes, such a blog post isn't just about making an announcement. A lot of it actually requires research and depth as how a vulnerability comes to life, how it works, what are the ways to mitigate it. Of course, that blog post about malicious remote code execution took happening when the time wasn't exactly fit for it. That security incident made the headlines while me and my teams were out the karaoke party, of course, the night out. And as you can see, everyone kind of like supported and liked doing this. So this went down fine. But really, it doesn't have to be just about travel and writing blogs and being on Twitter. As developers ourselves, we also can engage in engineering adventures to build tools that help developers in the ecosystem. And maybe in this field entirely that is relevant to us and where we work, one of the ways I chose to increase awareness for security concerns is to build a CLI tool called Is Website Vulnerable? Simple as that. It scans the website, detects the JavaScript libraries and versions, and compares that to vulnerabilities that we have in the Snyk vulnerability database. To my surprise, this weekend project of a small tool can actually make a significant impact. The project received thousands of stars on GitHub. I could use this project as a platform to enable other developers to get involved in general about open source and of course about security and Node.js and participating in active development, fixing bugs and building new features. It's a great way for me to engage with developers and help them make those conversations, see what's important. But it's also about inspiring others. It's what I like most. Remember what we talked about and the importance of this? One person built a website based on Is Website Vulnerable CLI that allows you to scan pages. Yeah, this is awesome. Others have actually contributed a GitHub action for Is Website Vulnerable. And even further, I've seen people have actually used this CLI as a test phase in their NPM lifecycle scripts. That's amazing. Of course, another aspect of engineering is basically your ability to use your expertise in an ecosystem that you participate in and share insights and features. One example of this is the Node.js support for integrity policy that adds an allow list for a set of modules as trusted and mitigate security concerns of altering them by a third-party actor. It's a pretty cool feature, but it's been it's gone experimental for the time when it got released. So many users probably didn't know about it. So a good way to engage with developers is also to write an engineering blog about it, because who doesn't like a really cool engineering blog, right? For some really experimental feature you can try out. One of my other favorite activities as a DevRel has been this freedom to actually dive into research areas that would otherwise wouldn't be a core focus for me as a developer. And so a really inspiring example of that is actually Charlie Gerard, who always amazes me with new creative ideas that she builds upon new technologies. Like, what a better way is to advocate for TensorFlow.js and the Web Audio API than to actually build a website that can listen to your microphone and detect which kind of activity you're actually doing based on just simply the sound that you're making. Maybe, are you brushing your teeth? Are you coughing? Are you typing the keyboard? Well, you can all read about it in Charlie's blog post. It's really cool. So, as we've seen, there are many different activities which DevRels engage in. Is it writing, webinars, talks, workshops, engineering, and ultimately, the type of activities you as a DevRel will do will actually focus on what is the most dependent upon in terms of your goals, in terms of what your role is set out to do in the company. So far, we talked about how DevRels produce content, but it's really a two-way street. It's not just about producing, it's also about listening and doing what we should be doing that we're not doing yet. So, for example, I was curious at whether developers will be interested in learning about proper ways of building their Node.js applications on top of Docker. But there were already a lot of Node.js with Docker type of tutorials out there. Even though I found a lot of them to provide poor advice to an extent, I wasn't sure if developers will find another one useful, right? Just another one. So I tweeted this out, and I want to build a comprehensive one, which will be a step-by-step guide with particular examples of building Node.js applications on top of Docker. And to my surprise, this really resonated with a lot of developers who really wanted to see this, were eagerly waiting for this content and for us to basically produce this. So me and Yanni Goldberg collaborated, as we often do, and compiled these 10 best practices to containerize your Node.js web applications with Docker. It showed me how sometimes you may think that an educational content for a given topic seems saturated, but people actually really looking for it simply to be provided in a different way. Another example of being connected to users and their problem spaces, their pain points, is I've been following a small repository that recently integrated us and saw a pull request coming up for something related to our CLI tools, and something looked odd in that pull request. So this happened when my entire company was out in its annual all hands event, and it was related actually to a recent Lodash security patch which we released. So I had to scramble away, start looking at what is going on there. Our CLI gets downloaded by millions of developers, all the day. So I was thinking that a significant bug here could actually impact our user base. So turned up to my buddies, we worked it out and released the fix, dropped it up in an hour, opened even a test case for it. Thank you, Anton. And this case showed how being connected to the community allowed us to react in time and save a great deal of headaches for our users. Listening to users to bring feedback internally is great, but an empowering way and engaging one with developers is doing it by showing empathy. Sympathizing with people shows them that you understand their pains, but showing empathy is a stronger way of proactively helping someone with their pain. Let's see a really small example of this. For example, maybe there's one way that what we want to do is user ask for PNPM.js support in Snyk. But we aren't supporting PNPM log file yet. So this is sympathizing with the person. However, what if we could help them? What if we could tell them, what use case are you actually interested in this? And maybe you could do it in a different way. Maybe there's some way that you could do there. So, summing up a bit, is Devrel a good thing for me? Is it a good fit for me? I don't know, ask yourself, do you like helping people? Is that something that fulfills you? Do you flourish when giving independence? Are you comfortable working remotely? Kind of. I guess everyone is today. Are you enjoying self-learning activities and exploring new things? One of the ways to capture how Devrel is different from other roles is this reversed comfort zone model. What does it actually entail? Well, everyone starts off in their comfort zone, but the real success comes in the growth zone. But how do we actually get there? So you first need to overcome the fear zone. Instead of making excuses, you should be in a state of mind that allow for experimental and a bit of mistakes as well. Failures are okay, right? They should be a learning experience for you. As you move further out, you need to think about this is basically a path for acquiring new skills and expanding your knowledge base in that area. Then that leads you on a path to the growth zone where you can truly immerse yourself in a purpose and the goal you've actually set. Now the thing is, with Devrel, the part that for me gets really tough is that this process is basically an iterative cycle that we go through and can lead us potentially to burnout. That is why you should actually be very mindful for it. This iterative process of always going into different comfort zone, but then, breaking out of this comfort zone, learning new things. So watch out for that. How do you make an impact? Well, doing Devrel is a lot of time, and it is very chaotic and very interrupt based, which adds a lot of context switching, which is, not really easy to deal with. But if you even do just a bit consistently with great passion to your community and end users, this result can be amazing. Just little things every time really accumulates to a lot. So that being said, I hope you're going to make a really great Devrel and even a greater engineer. Think about sharing, think about empathy and collaboration. All of these things will really form into an energetic, curious, innovating, optimistic, and inclusive mind for you. If that's the case, you're on the right path. Thank you so much. My name is LIRAN. Hope you learned something and have a great day.
LIRAN, that was a fantastic talk. Thank you very much for delivering it as part of this year's conference. I'm sure everybody watching along at home will be joining me to give you a huge round the world round of applause. If LIRAN's talk has left you with more questions and answers, please do join us for the Q&A session, which will be starting any moment now over on GatherTown. Keep those comments rolling in on social media using the hashtag CityJS2021, as well as everything that you've been doing already on YouTube and GatherTown. You know what to do. Keep those comments rolling in. LIRAN, once again, thank you very much for that superb talk.
LIRAN, great talk. Thank you so much for that. I know I have lots of questions. I'm sure the audience does as well. While they're typing their questions, let's start with one of my questions first. So my question to you is, you did mention pre-pandemic and during pandemic, how everything's gone virtual. And you're in Israel, and things are very advanced there. You've had your second vaccine, if I remember correctly. We're talking behind the scenes, which is amazing. Where do you see things, I suppose, going forward? Obviously, hopefully the rest of the world catches up. But do you see us going back to in-person events only, or a hybrid of the two, or a mix? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think generally people would want to come together more. We miss each other as humans. We need that contact. And I'm a hugs person, so I know for myself. It's actually it's gone. So yeah, I need that warmth as well. But yeah, I think generally speaking, things will go probably hybrid. But what I noticed that happened this year much more is people have gone and kind of like a bit out of their comfort zone into creating their own like YouTube channels, their own people discovered Twitch, right? They discovered a lot of things that how to get virtual and get a bit of exposure, a bit of collaboration with other colleagues and peers. And I think that's like a great symptom of just what happened, right? This is people discovering and like leveraging the internet, which they could have before, but there was really any motivation of doing it. But now it's happening, and it is great to see people that usually do not have that capability to fly over and and reach out to communities as easy as others are now able actually to kind of like capitalize on that, right? Capitalize on the infrastructure that we have set for ourselves. So this is great.
That is true. You're right. A lot of people, and a lot of people did start at the beginning of the pandemic doing like YouTube and Twitch, and a lot of the people kind of gave up as well. So it's great to see the people who really have been consistent and have powered through, and I think they're really getting the benefits now as well. So do you have a YouTube channel?
I don't.
Do you have a Twitch channel?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's the answer that I was looking for. Not yet. Okay, awesome. We'll keep bugging you on that. And in the meantime, I'll get you on my YouTube channel as well.
Sounds good.
So also, where do you see, I suppose, DevRel kind of changing? Do you see any, yes, we've gone virtual, more people are getting into it. Do you have any other, I guess, thoughts or predictions? And I have a follow-up question to that as well. I'll ask in a moment of what you would recommend to say junior developers. I hate using the word junior, for people who are new to tech or new to DevRel wanting to get into that space.
Cool. I've seen a thing about the time that I joined to do DevRel at Snake was 2 years ago, 2 years and maybe a bit more. And I think just at about the time that I joined, I saw some tweets going on about like the influx of basically like the peak of DevRel and so on. And it made me think about it a bit. Like it felt like this has been something that maybe will now people start hiring for this role and so on. But I think generally the truth is kind of like a bit more complicated, and I think the situation of what happens with software is going to change that to the other extreme, like much more hiring, which is what I'm saying, much more recruiting. And if you think about it, like the bigger picture here, DevRel, the basic term there is developers, right? And what is happening in the world is there are more and more developers every day, right? This things become more software. Software needs more developers to build it and maintain it and so on. And companies will probably eventually end up being more developer oriented in a sense. So I think general for DevRel, that's probably going to be an area of growth rather than an area of stagnation or decline. Um, and the approaches might be different depending on also how we code. Maybe like that movement of no code, right, or low code solutions where you just drag and drop things and build stuff. Maybe that's shifting a bit the mindset of how development is done, and maybe as well how devrel is done. uh, but still, like this is 5 10 years out. This is kind of like where I think we're probably going. um, Juniors or people generally starting out, right? I started out at devrel, not as a junior, but I was a junior as devrel, and so it doesn't really matter where you're coming from. Just the fact that you're probably transitioning into this as a first time comer into what's really developer relations all about. That's always a bit of a a bit of a change, I'd say, to say the least. So what I'm thinking is you do need to handle probably devrel, at least the way I've experienced it, is very demanding and very interrupt based, and you're kind of like a little bit on all over the places. Maybe you write a bit, maybe you need to get into a new tech, maybe you need to read some research paper, maybe you need to bring up a community, a Twitter, socials, look up Google Analytics for page views for something you wrote. And so there's just like a little bit of a lot of things, right? So having to go with the mindset that you expect those things, that that this is what's going to be demanded of you and not surprising you. I think that's partly it. um and a good spirit, I think, like a good confidence, and liking to basically help other developers, influence and inspire them. That's it's a great, I think, part of the role, is an important quality that you should probably have.
That's great advice, because I see also, I think so many people are kind of doing like mini DevRel in their kind of just sharing their journey. And so it's kind of just a few more steps they could really kind of go into that. So I love the advice you gave, and the tips, and I guess the mentality that you need to have, that things are always changing. Like you might just start something, but before you even start, 3 more things have kind of come in. And it's so true. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like that is very, very true. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time for questions. So everyone, don't forget to go follow LIRAN on socials so that you can find out the awesome and exciting things that he's up to, but also you can ask your questions as well. Also, everyone, go check out the sponsored booths. There are people there who want to geek out with you, want to talk to you, and just geek out. I was over at some booths talking about open source. The booth knows who they are, but I don't want to show any favoritism. But yeah, I've been geeking out about open source and so forth. So do go and chat to those, and you can get a virtual hug. So drum roll. Let's just do a drum roll. Right, LIRAN, give us a hug. Nice to chat with you, geek out with you. After all these years of chatting on Twitter, we finally get on a call.
Finally.
So yeah, it was great to geek out with you, and we'll organize some more geek out sessions and with the community as well. But thank you again so much today for your talk, and yeah, we'll all see you on socials.
Thank you, Eddie. Keep being amazing.
Thanks. Bye.